You're alive and Sam is here too.
Good morning. It is February 11th. We're resuming testimony in the Senate Transportation Committee. We're taking up S46, and I'm going to ask the senator from Windsor to talk a little bit about the bill as the lead sponsor in the Senate. And
Sure. Well, thanks committee for considering this. And I know we've got some folks on Zoom as well as the head of the organization for the loggers. The reason that I wanted to introduce this bill was because I heard from constituents who work in the industry in particular, who expressed how the inconsistencies between what we do in Vermont and what we do in neighboring states was causing them to make economic decisions that I don't think benefit us as a state. And it also feels like we're at a very important moment when it comes to climate change for us to invest in forestry products rather than fossil fuels. So I feel that this bill helps us address the ways in which we can lower the cost for wood products, which are a affordable way to heat our homes, not cool them yet, but maybe there's some exciting wood boiler work we can do in the future on that. And then the last thing I'll say is the majority of the folks who are requesting this tax exemption are small businesses. They're employers at the local level and they're throughout our state. So the goal of this bill in my mind is to support that vital industry, both because of the urgency with climate change and the need to support forest products in that regard. And then second, with now looking federally at some of the potential cost increases that are going to happen. I think that this bill will help soften the blow of potential increased costs. So yeah, that's why I introduced the bill.
thank you so much for doing that and kicking us off. And we have three people listed. Dana, you're in the chair, so we're gonna have you organize. If you could each give your name and your organization. And the floor is yours.
All right, excellent. Well, Senator Westman, Senator White, members of the Committee on Transportation, my name is Dana Duran. I'm the Executive Director of a nonprofit association called the Professional Logging Contractors of the Northeast. Appreciate you inviting me in to speak about Senate Bill 46 and act relating to the taxation of vehicles used for forestry operations. Also just want to highlight Representative Jed Lipsky. He's also in the room today. He has sponsored a similar bill in the House, so we appreciate kind of the companionship and the collaboration between both bodies on this initiative. I'll get into the specifics in a moment. Behind me or on Zoom today, we have Sam Lincoln from Lincoln Farm Timber Harvesting. Sam will give you his impression of how it will impact his business. We also have Michaela Kilburn from Kilburn Transport, and she's going to give her impression on how the bill will impact she and her husband's business. So they'll be following me. I want to thank Senator White, Senator Brennan, and Senator Pertwee for also co-sponsoring this legislation. It does two things. Again, I'll get into the reasons why in a moment. So first, it exempts new or used trucks, trailers, service vehicles, pickups that are used specifically in the logging and forest trucking business from purchase and use tax. Secondly, it exempts from the sales tax repair parts that are used for those same vehicles. And we'll connect the dots in a moment and you'll understand why we're asking for this exemption, not only from a cost basis and economic basis, but a future basis, market, etc. Many of the reasons that Senator White also alluded to. So I'm going to skip over the background. You have my written testimony. So as you know, logging, trucking is inextricably tied to the economy in the state of Vermont. 75% of the state is forested. It is a heritage industry in this state, has existed for several hundred years and is exceptionally important to the rural fabric of the state. On our association, we have about 25, nearing 30 members now. We just started working with contractors in the state of Vermont about a year and a half ago. We've had some legislative successes in the past session to help contractors, and this would be another. Sam Lincoln is a board member of ours. We also have two other board members from the state of Vermont, Jack Bell from Longview Forest down in Heartland, and Gabe Russo from Southwind Forestry in Pollitt. So what's happening in the logging business these days? Couple of things. won markets. We've lost tremendous market share in the state of Vermont alone, not to mention the neighboring states of Maine and New York over the last decade to 15 years. But just in the last year alone in the state of Vermont, you've lost Putney Paper, you've lost A. Johnson, and then you've lost the Mill River facility. Some is low grade, some is saw logs. And so that is a trend that is continuing. We're seeing that throughout the Northeast, actually throughout the United States. You add to that the situation with low grade markets in Maine over the last 15 years and losses of mills in Jay and Old Town and Millinocket and East Millinocket and Madison and Bucksport, and I can go on and on. But those mills are critical to Vermonters in terms of sales and competitiveness. So adding insult to injury, since the pandemic started, this industry has seen 40% inflation across the board in parts, equipment, labor, you name it, they are paying. And obviously that's not just specific to the logging industry. So we've also had 2 consecutive warm winters. We've had non-frost in the ground. Yes, this is a great winter so far. We've had 2 months of what actually is a real Vermont winter, but this is abnormal. In the last 3 years, we have not had operating conditions like this. Compounding that is the fact that all the wood yards across the Northeast are full right now. So yes, great operating conditions. It's a blessing and a curse that goes along with it. So now let me get into trucking and the situation with trucking. So, and why this legislation is so important. So in 2014, Congress, in their infinite wisdom, said that all heavy duty manufactured equipment, that's trucks, that's logging equipment, that's farm equipment, had to be manufactured to what's called a Tier 4 standard. So that's 98% particulate free comes out of the stack. So that's good and it's bad. It's good for the environment because what's being emitted out of that stack is water vapor. It's not carbon, it's not methane, it's actually beneficial, but it comes at a cost. So since 2014, we have seen the cost of a heavy duty, what's called a Class 8 tractor. So standard 3-axle tractor that's used with a trailer in this business for the most part. Yep. Has gone from about $125,000 to today it's $300,000 to $350,000. And it's predominantly because of technology and it's the requirement of Tier 4 engines. You add a trailer to that, so you're now looking at about a $450,000 investment, where it used to be about $175,000. That's in the last decade. So now there's a federal excise tax that is charged for every purchase in the trucking industry. It doesn't matter if it's a tractor, if it's a wheeler, if it's a trailer, if it's tires that are used on that trailer, it's 12%. So you quickly do the math of 12% on 175,000 and 12% on 450,000. You add to that the state sales tax. Logging businesses who invest, and it doesn't matter if it's new or if it's used, they are paying 18% sales tax on every single purchase. That is unlike any other industry in the United States, not let alone here in Vermont. So I think that to Senator White's point, contractors want to invest in technology that betters their business. They want to invest in newer equipment. They want to invest in equipment that not only saves money, but helps the environment. Emissions and particulate free, but it's a disincentive, number one, with the cost of the equipment, and number two, with the tax to invest. So what do? They look for older equipment that they can run longer. And that older equipment gives off NOx, methane, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a disincentive to invest in that. And then lastly, what are our competitive states doing? So for the last 25 years, the state of New York has exempted all tractors, trailers, and repair parts from sales tax in the state of New York. New Hampshire has no sales tax on any of this equipment. Maine has a bill similar to what Vermont is looking at right now to exempt the same thing. And the reason why is in 2018, this body exempted logging equipment from stump to roadside as sales tax exempt. Well, trucks and trailers are part of the manufacturing process. They're part of taking raw product, delivering it to a mill. And so they are another piece that still pays sales tax that likely should be sales tax exempt. Ag businesses don't pay that sales tax. Manufacturers don't pay that sales tax, but loggers are paying that sales tax. So I think from many different perspectives, that's why we're seeking this and why we're hopeful that this bill could either be taken on a standalone basis potentially incorporated, maybe in the DMV miscellaneous bill, just throwing ideas on the table. But those are the thoughts and the ideas. Very much appreciate hearing from me today and inviting me in. I think you'll learn more from the people that aren't wearing the funny shoes, who are going to hear actually from people who work in the industry behind me. So happy to answer any questions.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when you talk about the market, because the Putney paper is in my
Yep.
district and I'm relatively familiar with it. And I thought the low grade market issue was something that was just not gonna change. But this, the way you phrase it here, sounds as if it might. Is that what you're thinking?
Good question. So yeah, two things. So on the low grade markets, as low grade markets have disappeared, forest products have to travel farther. So that has an impact upon crops, trailers, et cetera. But in terms of economic forecasting, to your direct question, we believe that low grade markets are changing, and they're in a process of changing right now. We're seeing in Madison, Maine, using low grade spruce and fir and pine and hemlock to make insulation out of wood for homes and businesses. We're seeing biofuels companies that are potentially 2 to 3 years away. There's a new OSB plant that's being planned for the state of Maine. I think you're seeing Finch Paper and Ticonderoga, International Paper's Ticonderoga mill, called Silverlo now, is the only producer in North America of popular paper. So this paper right here is produced likely at the Pine Mill. And they are the only producer in North America making that. So we actually see new products that we're going to use that low grade wood coming in the future, but we're 2 to 3 years away from most of that manufacturing being brought online.
All right, that's good news.
Yeah, it is good news. And you're also seeing, the ND paper plant in Rumford, Maine is shifting to boxboard. So they're going to the Amazon market away from, your low grade copier paper, Sappi fine paper in Skowhegan and Westbrook. So the Westbrook mill is using low grade wood in textiles, in shoes, in handbags. So those are the products that are coming online, but we have a gap. And how do we keep that logging and trucking infrastructure intact so that there's a bridge from here to there?
Thank you.
Well,
Are there any mass timber manufacturers in New England or even in North?
yeah, very good question, Senator. So, mass timber, I think, has been used throughout the Northeast for 250 years. We've kind of rebranded it. Every barn that's been built in Vermont or house, it's all mass timber.
Right.
I think that most of what mass timber is its assembly. So you're taking 2x4s, 2x6, 2x8s, 2x10s, spruce fir dimensional wood, and you're putting that together, or you're laminating it. There are several mills in Maine, the Huber Mill, the LP Mill, that actually make mass timber products. They make LVLs, etc. It's market demand, and we don't have market demand right now because of interest rates. As interest rates are high, building construction is down, renovation projects are down, and so their building lines are down and their consumption of wood is down. But once that changes, once interest rates go down, once the demand comes back, those products are going to be in high demand.
Follow up, an unrelated question. So I guess maybe actual follow up is in the bill. We talked about the tractor trailers and cranes and all those things, but then we also include motor trucks and motor vehicles.
Yes.
And how would you define motor vehicles and motor trucks? Is that all motor vehicles?
Very, very good question. So what we tried to do was to use current statute to lay out, okay, here are the trucks that are used in the logging industry. So we've got tractor trailers, which is pretty explicit. Motor vehicles could include a wheeler. We've got tractors that
I could include the 150 I drive to the yard.
they could, yes, they could include that because those are interchangeable with getting to a logging job. They are moving the operators, they are moving equipment, they're moving parts, they are moving fuel on a daily basis.
As
So
long as it's purchased by business,
correct. And we actually met with the new commissioner of DMV about a week and a half ago, and he asked the same question. And from a fiscal impact standpoint, we don't know what the fiscal impact is yet. We've asked the Department of Tax to help us with that. The new commissioner of DMV had the same question. Sam Lincoln will probably relate his experience in 27-18. I think the fiscal note on logging equipment at that point is about $100,000.
Right.
So I don't, when you add pickup trucks, it obviously adds another perspective to this. But I wouldn't say that the fiscal note on this is going to be $500,000 or not. I think it's going to be somewhere between 100,000 and $500,000, somewhere in there.
They'll get
Yes,
just
I
DMV
Yeah.
and numbers. And
Yes,
any
most
less
likely.
of the-
One last thing for Senator Brannigan. And that on your chart, you have the tax rate on vehicles per Vermont, 6% up to 2,486.
Yeah.
Is there a cap? I didn't know there was a
There's a cap for heavy duty.
only for heavy duty truck.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Not for pickups.
This is not the last time we will be taking this up. So if the other two people that you have with you would like to speak, they've got like 12 minutes and
Understand.
we'll hear from them, but this will not be the last time that this comes up in here. So
Why don't we have Sam go next and then
Okay.
Michaela?
perfect.
And we know Sam sometimes wears a suit and a tie. He probably got in his truck just for this test.
Good morning, Senators. I wish I was with you today in the State House, but we have a parade of logging equipment moving from one harvest site to another this morning. So I'm in between coordinating that. So thank you for allowing me to testify by Zoom. For the record, my name is Sam Lincoln. I own and operate a Master Logger certified mechanized timber harvesting operation in Randolph Center. In addition to my career as a farmer and logger in Central Vermont, I served 4 years as the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation in the Scott administration, and I currently serve on the board of the PLC. Thank you to Senator Westman, Chairman Westman, and the committee for taking the testimony, and thank you to Senator White and the co-sponsors for taking this issue up. Harvesting timber as a part of forest management in Vermont has been a very rewarding career for me and many others. It's challenging work in adverse conditions and comes with a strong sense of accomplishment. In addition to the ecological benefits of our work, which are many, we also produce raw materials essential for modern society. We are an essential part of Vermont's rural economy. We have a terrific and abundant resource in our forests, and from my role as a private sector business owner and as a member of the administration in a department responsible for oversight of forests and forestry operations, I can confidently say that all Vermonters have a lot to be proud of and thankful for in how forests are managed in Vermont. Despite the many positive contributions and benefits of the forest economy, our sector is facing extreme financial challenges. Society has high expectations for how forests are managed, how water quality is protected, how workers are compensated and protected from injury, and many other costs that we bear. Those are good things that we're proud of. And however, when our products are sold into the global supply chain, we're competing against regions, countries, and industries and consumers that reward the lowest cost producer, and it creates an unlevel playing field. In 2017 and 18, the Scott administration proposed and the General Assembly passed legislation that exempted certain logging equipment and their repair parts from sales and use tax and purchase and use tax. This well-supported effort put Vermont logging contractors on par with their peers and competitors in the rest of the region. And as Dana mentioned, that fiscal note was, I believe that the JFO came up with a little under $100,000 for that initial exemption. It also kept more money in the hands of rural small business owners. At that time, vehicles were already exempt from these taxes in the neighboring states, as Dana outlined, but the logging equipment exemption was what there was an appetite for at the time. Given that we continue to face these rapidly increasing costs and higher expectations and fewer markets and increasing transportation businesses, the loggers and truckers in our organization felt this was the right time to bring forward an effort to put us on par with the region. And it's also the price of the vehicles. As Senator Perchlik asked, the service truck I'm sitting in now is a 2022. It cost me over $80,000. When I bought my first service truck, it was $25,000. And the repair parts and repairs for these vehicles are very costly. My log hauler has 13 log trucks, as Dana mentioned, at a price of nearly $450,000 a piece. And our businesses we cannot operate without them. So having worked in both the public and private sector, I'm fully aware that there's no silver bullet to solving the problems or capturing opportunities. It must be done layer by layer, thoughtfully moving legislation forward in response to real world conditions. And this legislation will be a helpful step toward maintaining the viability of our essential rural businesses. I appreciate the opportunity to testify and look forward to answering your questions.
Any questions for Sam? Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Is it Michaela?
Hi, thank you all. So I'm Michaela Kilburn. I own and operate Kilburn Transport with my husband. We're out of Eden, Vermont. I'd like to thank you guys for inviting me to testify for this. It would be a huge impact for us, as Sam had mentioned and Dana had mentioned. The cost of the trucks, just in, tax alone is a killer for us. We started in 2014 with one truck and one trailer. We now have 9 tractors, 1 dump truck, and 10 trailers, over half of which are all solely for logging. We have 7 full-time guys that run in Lamoille County. Sorry. And although we don't harvest the timber, we're a huge part of the transportation piece of it and the logging timber harvesting that goes in the state of Vermont. We also have had an impact with having to drive it farther, which means the cost of what we do for fuel and wear and tear, the federal excise tax on even new tires, and the costs of doing brake jobs and blowing tires in and out is hugely impacted for us, being a small owned and operated company. So having that 18% on everything that we buy basically makes it so that we can't always, get the newer equipment that would be safer and, better for the environment. So with savings even of 6%, it is a huge impact for us, and being able to keep guys employed, as well as, improving our equipment, which would improve the state's, environmental impact. So, anything that can be saved is obviously a blessing. And I thank you guys for considering it.
Thank you, Michaela. Any questions?
I just wanted to clarify, I was going to ask the same question that Senator Perchlik did. Sam, maybe for you, you're sitting in a work vehicle that you purchased. One of your employees might have a truck that he might use occasionally for work, but that's not purchased by you, so that wouldn't be covered in this bill, correct?
That would be my understanding of it, would be for vehicles owned by a business involved in forestry operations.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Westman, and thank you both so much for speaking. I appreciate the work that you do and taking the time out of your day. My question is, have you ever considered relocating your business or registering your vehicles or transitioning to another state? I realize that's probably less for Miss Kilburn, but Randolph, or even in my area, we're right on the border to New Hampshire. So I'm wondering if you've either considered that or had other companies that you have spoken to who have considered a state move.
We do register our trailers in Maine to save on the taxes. So none of my trailers are actually registered in the state of Vermont. They're all registered in Maine for that savings. They're a lot more user friendly. You can do a trailer for 5 or 10 years or even longer, and it's basically a one-time fee. And we don't have to pay the sales tax for it. So I did outsource that because of the savings that it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say that the same applies here in Randolph, that there are the trailers, that the main trailer registration system allows a very quick turnaround and low cost way to register trailers and have savings on that. I know logging contractors that operate in both states, and if they have the ability, if they have a business location, they can do it. They register in a state other than Vermont because of that ability. And I know some in New York and some in New Hampshire that take advantage of that. I say take advantage, they take advantage of their location of their shop or their business and things like that. So.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all for showing up. This will not be the last time that, this comes up in here. We will have to do some digging, because I'm sure that this bill will leave here. We'll go to finance and, it's, I would say for others in the committee, as we had some earlier discussions about the bump up between our revenues and other, areas of state government. The majority of, this exemption, whatever it costs, would end up, someplace else. You know, because, all of the sales tax goes into the ed fund. And a third of the purchase and use tax. So I think we'll have to have numbers if we're gonna move this bill. Because those questions will be asked someplace else. But thank you all for coming, and it will not be the last time this comes up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll share, I only had one copy left at the office, so this actually is the kind of overview of the Vermont floods and what happened to contractors from this past summer, so I'll leave this if somebody wants it. If not,
Yeah, we'll share.
okay, please pass it around.
Cheaper
Give me a
product.
good,
Talked about the money that they got,
And
because we get the loggers some money last year for flood damage.
none for the flood damage. There's a water quality program that, the FPR did receive, and they've put that out to bid to help contractors moving forward. So
I remember a couple of years ago working with Sam, but maybe that's what it was.
that's what it was. It was the last legislative session, and it was for a water quality program to help contractors with resilience efforts moving forward. Nothing in the rear view mirror,
Right.
looking forward down the road.
Yep. Decided that was better.
Yep.
so at this point, I'm gonna ask Megan to